Hi, and welcome to this video where we'll talk about how you can estimate your SAP PI to Integration Suite migration. My name is Daniel Gravers, and I'm the founder of FIGAF, and I've worked a lot with integration, so a lot of this is based on my knowledge about integration projects, what's going on, how to do migrations, my conversations with different industry experts, and getting their feedback on what is going on. And obviously I hope to create another version of this video, so if you have comments and feedback, please share them so we can improve this, so other people will also be able to get more from this. So the topic of how do you estimate this migration? It is really difficult to perform a good estimate. We know that from all type of projects. It needs to be something really repetitive before you're actually able to understand the precise estimate of doing something. And with a migration, you may have estimated 5 different or 10 different migrations and got feedback on how they perform, but they are at different customers that have different settings, scenarios, and all of these just adds much more complexity to the mix. There's a difference if you're a customer that does this migration in-house or a consulting company, based on the risk that you want to take on as a part of this. And yeah, the more you plan this and go into details, the better, but obviously there is a limit to what you want or will be able to experience here. You need to obviously understand what are the goal with this estimation. And I guess obviously you want to understand the effort in the migration. You want to come with ways you can optimize the process. You will create a cost estimate of this in some way, either it's hours or dollars, euros for that. Then you need to cover how long time it will take, and you want to figure out what is the risk profile. Disclaimer, so this is we will no way be responsible for your estimate. It's you and your team's own responsibility to perform this estimates. I hope some of the things that we provide here does give you value, and our report is it is, I'm sure it is so incomplete. There is things that will be nice for you to have in this report that we do not lead, and there could be problems in it, but at least it is a good starting point that you can use, so that makes sense. We have this assessment tool where you can create a free assessment, and there should be a link in the video that you can go to or bookmark this. It takes like 30 minutes to go through and set it up on your laptop, connect to the PI system, and create the assessment. If you look at this video, it's like a 9-minute video where we go through the different steps and create everything that is needed. But obviously synchronizations can take a little longer. So 9 minutes. And here's the result of this Excel sheet. And we'll go into more details about this and what you can use it for later in the video, but just know that we can create this. This gives you, for instance, here the IQ, the number of PI mappings. You do have options to do splitting, channels, mappings, operations, function libraries, all these things that is important when you're planning this migration. SAP also have an assessment that's coming out on the integration suite Tenants in 2023, so it should be there soon. It also gives you an estimate. I don't know how you would tailor this or how precise it is and compare that to our tool. I would recommend that you use both as a way to understand what makes sense for you to use and which gives the most precise details. It is only for 7.5. If you have anything else than 7.5, FIGAF supports that, so that will be the only tool that supports this assessment. As a part of a migration, and obviously this may be a little different if you're internal versus if you're a consulting company that are delivering this. But as a part of doing a migration, you need to understand what's the target architecture, what is it that we want to deliver for these things. And a part of this is also, understand what will be needed in the SAP system. Is SAP Suite going to be the best tool for this? You need to go through structures and naming. And this is probably something that you will take up as you move along in the process, learning more about the migration and capability that will give you some insights about what to do. So there are some interesting numbers that you probably want to figure out as a part of this. Obviously, how many, what's the total number of integrations that exist on the system? What are the different adapter types and modules that is used? Number of migrations or integrations that can easily be migrated, number of pass-through scenarios, where it's probably, and you can obviously in an architecture decide whether or not you actually need these pass-through scenarios, because I think a lot of customers would have scenarios where they're taking data from the AP, sending through the PI system to the cloud integration system, and if that is the goal, then it does not really make any sense to migrate that specific scenario to just connect and just go around it and connect directly to the cloud integration system. So go through some of these pass-through scenarios and say, okay, let's just skip them if it makes sense. EDI scenarios, I think that's an important metric, because a lot of EDIs, as I understand, they would look identical, but there is a few gaps that would need to be envisioned in a migration process. Like, if I'm using the training partner management, how do you fit that into it? And then do you have any type of integrations where you could go through a pre-delivered content with your systems? As a part of this, I would also go through, once you understand some of the different patterns that you have, that you go through and perform migrations of some of these sample scenarios. So pick 10 or whatever is needed for you to give some good understanding of what is going on. This will give you an understanding of the different tools. Obviously, I hope you would try out the FIGAF tool for handling the migration and see what it is creating. You should be using SAP's migration tool if you're in the integration suite. Otherwise, try the mapping import functionality, and compare these three options and see what is the best value for your scenarios. You obviously also need to perform testing, and you need to consider production or moving this into production and figure out what to do with this. We just mentioned testing, and obviously I think testing is a huge part of a migration project. One of the challenges is that the business really don't care that you are migrating, because you're just in the integration department, just supposed to handle the message and make sure everything works. If they suddenly see that they need to be a part of the testing, it is a lot better if you can do all this testing and just say, okay, please do a connectivity test and see everything's fine. We think it works out pretty well. Gartner is estimating that migration testing efforts is 60% of the migration process, so it is something that you need to look into. And you don't want to go live with something that you have not tested. That is just going to be a lot of pain for both you and the company. In the FIGAF tool, we do have the tool that allow you to automate the testing, and we believe that this can reduce the effort of your testing. You can take messages on your PI system and then run them on the migrated iFlows. And then you can document that we have run these tests, that everything looks okay, and it is processed successfully. You will obviously still need to ensure everything is working and connections can be made successfully. What should be included in your estimate? And obviously this depends on the scope, what you want to achieve. But obviously you need to have project management in. How much time are you going to spend on this? What's the effort to migrate an ICO? And how much do you need to spend on adopting to that ICO? Testing efforts, reconfiguration of systems, how does that all work? Some systems may be easier, some harder, and you need to figure out, okay, what's the scope of this? And it obviously becomes a lot more challenging if you start connecting with business partners through this. You obviously need to figure out what kind of documentations, transport, and go live that needs to be included in this. Since this is really a labor-intensive process, there's a lot of manual steps that you need to perform. It makes sense to understand how you can automate this and optimize the process so it becomes a cheaper migration. So we do have the FIGAF tool, and it does have a number of features to improve your project. So we have a project overview that gives you an overview of your migration projects. There is, and obviously the assessment that you can get. There's a migration of ICOs that you can take an ICO and convert it directly. There's the testing testing part. There's transport and configuration in the landscape, and then obviously we have governance and documentation, support, monitoring. All of this that's a part of such a delivery organization. If you implement that, then yeah, you save a lot of time that you otherwise would be doing manual labor in. And yeah, that's a free tool that you can try out, and I hope you will use it for the assessment. And once you're anyway working with the assessment, you might as well go through the other steps and see, okay, this makes sense because we would save a lot of time on our transports, on our testing, on all of these different parts. You need to come up with your estimate, and depending on how you want to do this, you could look at simple migrations that with no fuss that can be easily migrated, come with a time on this. Medium complex scenarios, redesign, which would be scenarios where you say, okay, this is completely bogus, or that it could be scenarios using BPMNs, where you say, okay, we don't want to use BPMNs in this diagram, so we need to redesign them from scratch. And I think in a lot of cases that can make sense. So I do have a few BPM scenarios. I would say, okay, if I needed to migrate these, I would start over and create it in a much better way. You need to redesign, and then you need to replace some of the standard packages in your integration. And I think that is also pretty important to see, okay, do we have a SAP success factors integration that we can use instead of the one we have created? Probably it will take some more time to get it done, but you probably will have a better and more robust integration at the end that supports more use cases. So also consider that as part of this estimate. Yeah, notice you will be wrong. There is no way around this. Otherwise, I guess you would spend too much time on the preparation phase. Yeah, some will be faster. Hopefully you get the ballpark right. Some will be faster, some slower. And then you'll need to use your knowledge of the system landscape, governance processes, the team's experience, and what price they're willing to pay, the risk profile of the company, and the willingness to accept changes in time price for this. And then you will also learn, and as you go along, it becomes easier for you to migrate these things because, you know how to run them, how to perform the migration. So the 10th or 100th migration will be a lot faster. So I did try to use this Excel sheet and say, okay, if we have this, what can we actually extract from it? Can we create some useful data? And I put it in here in my Soho Analytics that we're using, but you could also put it into SAP's Analytics to get some different reports on these scenarios. And hopefully we can provide some of these at some point in time. So you can upload this generated Excel sheet and then go through it and figure out how to deal and how to create some better graphs of these data. So the things we have here is the distribution of sender channels. We can see we got the file and a file content conversion file. So obviously you need to understand some of these different perspectives. Something with an EDI separator. All of these things is useful information when you're going through the assessment. How many scenarios do we have with EDI in them? So let's look at the Excel sheet, and I think this is here we have the Excel sheet. So we have taken the Excel sheet and opened it, and I have then here so let's just go through the Excel sheet. I think it makes sense. So we have the system, so you can connect it to multiple systems. We can see we have here a receiver system that if you have a dual stack system, they would also be included here. And obviously it can be different details that you can see here. We try to determine the scenario type based on what we know. It's our best guess. You can see the sender system that's in place, if there's any modules in the system. I think these make sense. Okay, dynamic configuration bean is not something that is going to take you hours to replace, but request one-way beam, which is an async sync bridge, is a little more challenging to replace than this. The next field we have is the message protocol and transport protocol. So here you can see if it's CSV or file content conversion that is being used in the scenario. We have here the operation mapping, and you can see if it's a pass-through. If there's no operation mappings, you have what are the different mappings that we have in the systems. Sometimes you may have multiple mappings in here because it contains multiple mappings. So here we can see that there's actually 3. This one also have 3 mappings in, not really show the scenario. We can see if there's function libraries that is being used, and obviously this has impact on what you can choose for migration, because at least the file import does not have function libraries in at the moment. So if you need to migrate those, the FIGAF tool will be the easiest to migrate. Another challenge you could find is we have added this column with mapping challenges, and here we can see if it has parameters in the operations. There is also one here where we have lookup, where we can see, okay, we are using an RFC lookup function. How does this all affect, and is this something we need to replace, or how does this function work? Then we have receiver information, receiver files, and we have, if we have test cases on it, then we have for successful messages, messages that where we have data on. Makes sense to say, okay, this obviously is just using the runtime data and the messages that has been persisted there and giving our best estimate on what has been processed. I think it is as default not showing synchronous messages, but I think you can add these to also be able to show them. At least it is a good starting point to understand what is going on in the landscape. Then here at the end, I've added some custom fields. I've added a pass-through where I just check the length of the operation mapping For the EDI, I'm using if the modules contains converter. For the RFC, I have just asked if there's an RFC function in this mapping parameters function. And this is the way we have been going through this. You can easily create a so we say insert a pivot table, and here in the pivot table we can then add, if we want to check the adapter types that you're using, we will add sender here, and then we'll just add the count of these, and we can see what are the different artifacts that is being used for these scenarios, and maybe add modules into it also. So here we can easily see how many file scenarios you have, how many with the different adapters. So, and you do the same for sender, just to have an idea about, okay, which type of adapters, which type of scenarios do we have, and are there any of these that can give us some problems. Another way, I think this is, let's see if I add it here, would be that you check based on the sender and the receiver system. And receiver system count. Here you can see we have the system that's called app member that is sending to BC vendor, and 9 interfaces that is using ERPD. So this will also give you an idea about, okay, so what are the systems that is do not remove rule only existent target update. So this really simplifies a lot of the processing that you can see, okay, are there any of these that we have a lot of interfaces on, and how would we deal with them? And this could be some of the pre-delivered content if it is pre-packaged content. You can obviously check on successful messages, have filter per that. Yes, so definitely this gives you a lot of insight on what's going on. I went through some of the analytics here. So one thing you need to know is that if you have messages that is being split, like this one up here, you would have a duplicate of the PI message ID. So here we can see that it is using this message is being split to 2 different parties. So there is options for duplicates in here, so do bear that in mind when you're looking at the data. But this is showing sender receiver combinations, and I think that is the important part for doing a migration process. We can see receiver determinations here. Yes, I did try this analyze data here, which I think is also a bit interesting in the newer Excel versions that can give you some insight on specific data. What are the different receiver modules here? So we can see that are 6 distinct modules. What are the different receiver modules? So I think this also gives you a lot of cool things. You can insert it as a pivot table, and then you have all the details here. Cool. Let's continue. So that was the demo of the Excel sheet, and you need to spend some more time on it. And maybe you go through each of these scenarios, insert your own column, and say, okay, this will take, or this is low, medium, high priority, or whatever you need to take, and then based on that you will find the best estimate for it. We have our calculator on this side, which will also give you some insights on how do you estimate these, how many one-to-one migrations will you have, how many redesigns, what does it take, what's the reduction using the FIGAF tool, and then the price, cost savings using the FIGAF tool, and the cost of the FIGAF tool. If you want to know a little about the different versions that we do have, then we have our free trial. That's a 30-day trial that allows you to understand what the tool can do. Then we have our migration edition. This is a free edition that for 1 year allow you to assess create the assessment, have an overview of your integrations, and then it allow you to take a PI message and run it in CPI. There's a trial of the other ones for some period of time. Then if you want to have a better release process, then we have our DevOps suite. This gives you the ability to test and create test cases on CPI or cloud integration. Also directly, it allows you to transport, document all the governance part. It allows you to monitor, and then you have a Git repository with all your artifacts in. And this makes it a lot easier to manage and develop integrations. It starts at €1,000 a month. And then the last one we have is the ICO migration or receiver determination, where you can take an ICO receiver determination and migrate it into an iFlow using our approach. This is €100 per ICO that you migrate. And this simplifies the process, and make it a lot easier for you to manage your migration. So that's why I also think it makes sense for you to go through the trial, understand how the tool can simplify your delivery process. So feedback is welcome. This is something that I will be working more on and helping customers figure out how to assess these things. What is it that is important? How can we improve the tooling? How can we improve the capabilities to make it easier for you to manage these things? So if you have comments, please share them with me or put them in below here in the video. So I hope you liked it. If you did, please subscribe, please like, and please share the video with your friends and co-workers that could find this relevant. Thanks for watching.